I want to introduce this, this segment with a few words. First, is this up on the screen? Let's look at the strategic objective that we're going to be talking about today. Be a magnet for outstanding students and prepare them for positions of significant leadership in the church, business, government, and professions by offering an excellent education in strategic disciplines. We could spend an entire year on this one. This is what we do in higher education. We analyze the components. What do we mean by magnet? What do we mean by outstanding students? What are they outstanding in? What do we mean by leadership? What do we mean by significant? You get the idea. We love ideas. We love the discussion. We love analyzing. We love investigating. We love the fact that God made such a complicated world that we will spend the rest of our lives looking at it and wondering about it and trying to figure it out. But I'm not going to do all of that. I'm only going to focus on the first 6 words. Be a magnet for outstanding students. A magnet attracts. How do we attract? How do we attract students? Have you ever watched the campus tour? It's a scream to me. God bless you, enrollment counselors and admissions people. You walk people around this campus and you point to the classroom, and they all nod their heads. I mean, this hasn't changed for 10 years. This hasn't changed for hundreds of years, really, the formats. You point to the gym. We're not very physically attractive. If we're attracting people only because of our physical sense, well, I'm not even going to do that. That's for a whole nother day. Yet, students that come here list us as their #1 choice. There's something that we have here that they want. But when they get here, are they satisfied? Every year, Noel Levitz, we give the Noel Levitz Student Satisfaction Survey. And based on the results for the fall, I want to just tell you the top 8 positive areas. There are more. And there are challenges, but I just want to tell you the top 8 positive areas. And to be a positive area, this means that for our students, they think this thing is important and they are satisfied with it. So let me tell you what they think is important and satisfies them here. Students are made to feel welcome. The campus is safe and secure. My academic advisor is available. The campus staff are caring. Living conditions are comfortable. Faculty are available outside of class. Campus provides online access. The campus is well maintained. What do you hear in that? What do you hear that they think is both important and that satisfies them? Primarily what I hear is they want us to care about them. It's important for them that we care, and we do care. We want to be with them. We want to work with them, and it's important to them, and they know we care. Those are the positive things. Jim McCormick and Gary Ewen will begin to discuss some of the more challenging aspects of our university. We have lots of challenges, but we do have an end goal, a very clear end goal for us. We're going to become a great university. And to become a great university, we have to be becoming great. Great attracts. Great is a magnet. We will be irresistible if we are great. How can we become great? For one, we all have to become great. I want you to really think about this objective workshop for you. What are you doing to attract? Do you attract? Are you a magnet? Our big magnet, the university, is really a makeup of all of us as magnets. We each have to become a magnet. So what are you going to do to become a magnet? One real quick thing I want to point out to you is in the Chronicle of Higher Ed last month, there was an article on this generation, the be everywhere now generation, teaching a generation devoted to speed and motion. And one of the highlights of that article, it's depressing to me. One of the highlights of that article is saying, ask a college student what they're going to be doing on Friday night. Ask them at 5:30 and they won't know. But they'll start thinking of the possibilities. They could go to a concert, they could go out to eat, they could go to this, they could go to the party, they could go to, and I mean, it's just a list in small print, and even when they pick one of them, let's say they go to a party. What are a fourth to a half of them doing at the party? They're on their cell phones because they're talking to someone who's talking about another party that they might potentially go to. And that simulated party is always more fun than where they actually are. Do you guys get that? For students now, life is elsewhere. The idea is to keep moving and to never stop. Skate over life. Skate over life. I want to counter that. I want to counter that with everything that I have while they're here. And one of the first things I would go to is Richard Foster's Celebration of the Disciplines. You know, this book was written a long time ago, but I picked it up last week, and it is true. It is true. Superficiality is the curse of our age. The doctrine of instant satisfaction is a primary spiritual problem. The desperate need today is not for more intelligent people or gifted people, but for deep people. Psalms 42:7 says, deep calls to deep. And somewhere in the unconscious parts of your mind, you are tired of living on the surface. You are tired of skating from one thing to another. You want deep. You want real. And I don't care what generation we're talking about. People are attracted to real. And we know the difference. Are you real? Do you attract? There's several things that we're going to do this right now that we need to do ourselves to attract. We need to resolve to become excellent individually, personally, in our lives, in our jobs, in the way we move and be about the world. We need to resolve absolutely never to be mediocre. We're not doing anything to skate through the day and just do the minimum required to get through our work day. We need to be resolved to be identified with the university, and I thank you again for attending the events this semester. 350 at Behe the other night, 300 and some at D'Souza the night before. The Jeffco, you're at Jeffco representing, you're at the basketball tournament. Thank you. Thank you. Be identified. You are CCU. You are CCU. To become great, to attract, we all have to be magnets. Truly, if we're all magnets, anybody that comes here will have no other choice. They won't be able to make a different decision than to be with us, and we will want to be with each other. We will create a place where outstanding students want to be, where we want to be. We'll become a great university, and our students will change the world. Gary Ewen.
All right, so what we're focusing on this morning is this notion of becoming, if you will, magnetic for other human beings and so on. So magnets both attract and repel. As Cherri said, what are you doing to be magnetic? And also consider what are you doing that might repel other students and so on, okay? Be a magnet for outstanding students, human beings that we want to come here to the university. Well, big idea. To attract any species, you must first understand that species and their habitat. Professor Cyphers and I work with a couple of alumni, one who runs a big game ranch and another one who runs a waterfowl site, and he's building a pond to grow trophy trout and things like that. Well, one of the things that we've expressed to them is in order to do that, you need to understand the species and the habitat that they live in, whether that species is a trout, whether that species is an elk, or whether that species is a new student. So today I'm going to be talking about a subspecies of human being that we call the millennials. Current generations here at CCU, we have the GI generation. These folks are predominantly 84 years old to 107. We have a few on our board of trustees, some board trustee emeritus and so forth. We have the silent generation, 66 to 83 years old. Large portion of our faculty are of the boomer generation. Some of our junior faculty are in the Gen X generation, and as well as a lot of our staff. And then millennials, to my knowledge, we don't have any millennials on our faculty, but we do have some millennials on our staff. So we really span 5 generations here of people who are currently involved in CCU. I'm going to talk about that bottom generation, the millennial generation, the newest generation coming in, and give you some ideas about who they are, what their habits are, what their habitat would look like, and how to attract these people, okay? Big idea in case I lose some of you. If you're involved in the CUS division, we began serving millennial students in the year 2000, and we will continue to serve these students until the year 2024, or roughly 16 more years. If you're in the CAGS division, it's a little bit longer target. You began serving millennials 4 years ago in the year 2004 when they started entering your classrooms, and you will continue to serve them until the year 2060, or 50 plus years for this generation. So it behooves us all to understand something about this unique generation of people. Now, you might wonder why I have the flag of Poland on the screen. It's because in less than a month, I am going to take a small group of students over to Poland on a mission trip. I don't know anything about Poland. I sat with Bernie Prokop a little over a week ago, and he tried to enculturate me to what Poland looks like and what Poles are like and things like that. So I asked him at one point, so all Poles will react this way to me, right? And he said, no, no, no. In general, this is how they will react, but they're all different. Well, let me clue you into something, folks. The same thing is true about millennials. As I show you some of the characteristics of millennials, some of you reflect on your children or your students and say, that's not what I'm seeing. Well, trust me on this. The data that will be presented is over hundreds of thousands of millennials being surveyed, tested, so on and so forth. These are generalities. Indeed, we're all different. The boomers in the room, my generation, right? A lot of unique things about the boomers, and I'm different than some of those things. But in general, I'm more alike my colleagues in that generation than unlike, all right? So big idea. This is a big representation of data. All right, perspective is everything, folks. Members of the class of 2012 who will be entering college next fall were mostly born in the year 1990. To them, the Soviet Union has never existed, and it's about as scary as the student union, right? They've known only 2 presidents. There's always been one Germany. Reality shows have always been part of TV. They've always been able to watch wars and rebellions live on TV, and there's always been email. They've grown up with bottled water. They've never truly rolled down a window. Nelson Mandela has always been free and a force in South Africa. Walmart's always been the largest retailer in the world. Fox has always been a major network. Smoking has never been permitted on American Airlines. They get their news more from Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert than from any newspaper. They're always texting one another, right? Google has always been a verb. Mr. Rogers, not Walter Cronkite, has been the most trusted man in America. They grew up in minivans. They've rarely mailed anything using a stamp. Most of them never had a chance to eat bad airline food. They've never served it. Disneyland has always been in Europe and Asia. They really don't remember when cut and paste actually included scissors. Al-Qaeda has always existed. Daily caffeine emergencies, Starbucks was always around the corner. They never saw the Space Shuttle Challenger fly, and digital cameras have always existed. So again, I want to give you some perspective on who these people are that are entering our classrooms now. So I'm going to look at 7 core traits for the millennial generation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each one of those traits and show how those traits impact 3 different areas of our university: recruiting and admissions, campus life, and the classroom. This is a 4-hour seminar compressed down into an hour. So brace yourself. First trait, this generation is viewed as special by other generations and themselves. Older generations have inculcated the millennial generation with a sense that they are indeed a special generation. Are they another lost generation? Absolutely not. Contrary to the Gen X generation, a better word would be a found generation, they were born in an era where most Americans showed a much more positive attitude towards children and therefore a significant boom in the child population. Over the next decade, college freshman enrollment is due to grow by over 25,000 students per year. If we take a look at this chart here, we can see births in millions, 1950 to 2004, and I've overlapped it with some shading so that you can see your generation. You can see here that the millennials are actually the largest generation in American history. Part of the reason is the births, and a major contributor to this generation is immigrants. Whether legal or illegal, these immigrant students are hitting our classrooms today. More about that later. Projected change in the number of high school graduates around our country, 2007 through the next 10 years. Good news, you can see there Colorado. It's the rectangular one, kind of in the middle. 21% growth projected over that period of time. All the gray ones show growth. Where are they? Predominantly surrounding where we are. We'll see a lot of enrollment growth in our area of the country over the next 10 to 20 years. Colorado specifically, public and non-public high school graduates, you can see the trend there. Little dot represents where we are on that trend. We will see college enrollment growing over the next several years. Competition factor, however, for Colorado students, you can see here that we expect 48,000 high school seniors in the year 2007 through 08. There are 78 institutions of higher education in Colorado, 57.8% of college continuation rate, or 28,100 students. Okay? 20% leave the state to go to college. That leaves 22,476 students divided by 78 institutions, or 288 students per institution. We need more than 288 students coming in the door, folks, if we're going to be that great university. So we need to do more than some of those other schools to become magnetic and attract those students, yes? White non-Latino public high school graduates, we will see that group begin to diminish here in Colorado for a period of time and then take off again. That is going to be counteracted, however, by a significant increase in those immigrant students that I told you about. Understand that today's juniors in high school are projected to be the largest high school graduating class in 2009 in United States history. Students of color will represent 80% of the increase in college-age students between 1995 and the year 2015. Nearly 50% of the growth will be among Hispanic students. That is good news for us here in the West and in Colorado. That's a graph that shows the exact same thing. We really will see an influx of a lot of Hispanic students coming our way in the next several years. All right, so let's look at this thing, this generation that's considered special, if you will, and how it will impact the area of recruiting and admissions. Understand that this generation is often co-purchasers with their parents. When I went to get a new pair of glasses, my daughter insisted on going with me so I wouldn't look like a nerd, right? She insisted on going with me to the barber when I got a haircut right before her wedding so I wouldn't look like I just got out of boot camp, as she said, and so on. When my wife is looking to pick up an iPod, who does she consult? Our 12-year-old, right? These people are co-purchasers, if you will. So the big idea, pay attention to both the students and their parents. They're interested in close supervision of these students, medical and counseling services, safety is a big deal, ADA services for students with disabilities and so on. Understand that this generation is used to various luxuries. Apartments, not traditional dorm rooms, are what they're looking for. Fine dining, they're used to it, folks. So the cafeteria food needs to be of high quality for this particular generation, okay? Including, some schools are actually including Jason's mother's meatloaf recipe for dinner in the cafeteria. They actually have recipe contests with parents to send them in, things like that, okay? This generation is prepared to play a very special role, okay? So as such, we need to stress institutional traditions, very high standards, and involvement in both national and international life. This is a global generation. They don't think twice about emailing their friends in Vietnam or over in Poland or what have you, right? Personalized attention, personalize the recruitment process, VIP electronic applications with all of the primary data already filled in is becoming now normative in colleges and university processes, okay? Campus life. How's the specialness of the millennial generation going to hit campus life? Again, that co-purchaser with parents, okay? Understand that the parents are going to expect to be continued to be engaged in the educational process, so we need to pay more attention to the parents. For example, regular newsletters to the parents and even co-classes for parents. Perhaps not with the papers and things like that, but more and more schools are offering parents the option of enrolling in the same class with junior online so that they can see the lectures, read some of the books and things like that. These parents want to continue to be engaged with junior. We need to be very careful to track and channel that energy, however, and allow parents to understand where it's appropriate for them to be engaged and where it's not appropriate for them to be engaged. One of the things that a lot of schools are doing now is they are dealing with FERPA issues on an exception basis only. In other words, everybody at orientation signs their FERPA waiver because mom and dad need to be involved in the education. And only rarely will that college student not sign the FERPA waiver so that mom and dad can't be involved. And so that's on a front-end deal versus a back-end deal, okay? Understand this, availability of single bedrooms is now all the rage. Think about it. Most of the millennials have never shared a bedroom with a brother or sister. They expect double beds, right? So on and so forth. I'm not suggesting we have to do these things. I am telling you that these are some of the expectations of people in this generation, okay? On-campus housing done right is a significant retention tool. Good news, we tend to do it right here. And then finally, the classroom. Again, this notion of co-purchasers. Faculty colleagues, be prepared for parental involvement, okay, including checking on grades, including complaining to you about whatever it might be, so on and so forth. Never put reputation and your research ahead of teaching your undergraduate students. That's what they're coming here expecting, okay? Understand that students expect contact with faculty. They have very high expectations, smaller class sizes, real faculty, not teaching assistants, strong presence of full-time faculty as opposed to an overwhelming presence of affiliate faculty, okay? More faculty office hours, specific requirements for faculty to advise and mentor them, going well beyond academic advising, okay? And understand that the cutting-edge education will have an emphasis on significant structure and feedback. More assignments, smaller assignments, with rapid and detailed feedback via the online gradebook is now a foundational expectation of these students coming in. Second core trait, millennials are sheltered. They are the most protected generation of human beings in the history of the world. Okay? Some data there. Millennials are protected, they feel protected, and they expect to be continued to be protected, even, some might say, overprotected. So, are they neglected? Absolutely not. Unlike the previous generation of Gen Xers, the latchkey generation, if you will, the millennials are just the opposite. They're the most watched over generation in human history. Typical day for the millennial has become a nonstop round of parents, relatives, teachers, coaches, karate instructors, babysitters, counselors, chaperones, minivans, surveillance cameras, so on and so forth. Okay. Millennials by the numbers index of child well-being across various ethnic arenas, all on the rise. Millennials expect to be kept safe. College is no exception. Campus security is now a sales point to this generation of co-purchasers, student and parent. Okay? As such, schools are increasingly implementing state-of-the-art security systems, hotel-style key cards for the front door of the apartment, surveillance cameras, so on and so forth. Millennials come to college looking for very high-quality things like the water, right? Is it double filtered, so on and so forth, right? HVAC quality with allergens being prevented, so on and so forth. You get the idea. These people have come to expect that level of service. Accountability is key. Promote positive crime trends both on campus and in your area. We don't have a high crime rate at CCU. We need to pitch that to students and their parents. It's a pretty safe campus. Search for a sheltered environment. Emphasize a feeling of close community, small class sizes, teachers who care and know your name, right? In loco parentis, we as baby boomers resisted that one, right? Leave me alone from my parent. Millennials expect it. They expect us to take the role of parents and be close to them, if you will. Organize your community into smaller entities with communal or family labels. Familiar with the movie series of Harry Potter where each house in this particular school has its own community and so forth? Good news, we do that well here with an increasing movement towards themed housing and so forth. Students begin to feel like they have a home group to go home to. Safety concerns extend to misbehavior by students themselves. Millennials expect accountability even for themselves. Understand this generation grew up in a zero-tolerance environment, right? No guns, no butter knives to school, so on and so forth. They expect such a zero-tolerance environment for themselves. Underage drinking is on the decline, okay? Student drinking is increasingly moving off campus. There's much less rambunctious Greek life these days. Student smoking is on the decline. You'll see in a few moments. This is a generation of people who are fairly conventional in their behavior. Millennials are used to having their prescription medications, however, for everything from allergies to flu to colds to you name it. As such, one of the things that's on the increase with this generation is prescription drug abuse, including going to the medicine cabinet of your roommate and taking their Ativan, taking their Ritalin, taking whatever it might be, okay? Millennials do have a higher incidence of weight problems, not just bulimia, but overeating as well. The famous freshman 15 has now grown to the freshman 25, okay? As such, a lot of colleges are encouraging students to become far more active in their environment, which is a countercultural thing for the millennials. You'll see in a little bit. They're not real active outside of the video game arena and things like that, okay? The classroom. Again, these co-purchasers, parents and students, folks, expect frequent and timely feedback. Colleagues on the faculty, roll call is back, especially for freshmen. Early warning systems, attendance and performance. require extra structure, require extra notice on your part, and feedback to that student in a regular manner. They expect two-way accountability as well. Increased scrutiny from parents, the media, government, and students themselves of what goes on in the classroom. There's an increasing number of lawsuits over capricious and injurious academic evaluations. Grades. You weren't fair. I'm going to sue you. Filed by disappointed students. Okay. They're also looking for a values-based education. Good news for CCU? Great news for CCU. A lot of surveys being done out there and so forth. Fundamentally, this generation and their parents tend to consider themselves more conservative than those of the college faculty, right? Professors are more at risk than before of hearing complaints from parents and students who differ with their ideology, right? So we're going to start to see a little bit of a conservative whiplash come back towards schools. Third of the 7 core traits, confident. This is a very confident generation. Very high levels of trust in institutions and very high levels of optimism, okay? Understand that this generation really has been told that they're the salvation of the world, and in many respects they believe it, okay? And in many respects they may well be right. Let's hope so, okay? Oops. Are they pessimists? Absolutely not. This is a generation of optimists. 9 in 10 describe themselves as happy, confident, and positive, unlike the Gen X and the Boomer generation. Teen suicide rates are trending downward for the first time since World War II. So, how do we take this confident generation as far as recruiting and admissions, right? You remember the old commercial, this is your brain on drugs? That was for the Gen X generation. You will see the same commercial now, only it says, tell me you're proud of me for not doing drugs. Do you see the difference? Okay. They really want to be embraced. They really want our pride and affection. They've been trained up to expect that, if you will. Okay. We want, it would be good for all schools, magnet institutions, to show college as a place that's upbeat and capable students can indeed succeed in that environment. Understand that recruiting and retaining millennial men will continue to be a challenge. For whatever reason, millennial men are not as attracted to college as women are, if you will, and so we need to really focus in on that, as do other colleges and institutions as well. Okay? Understand that rituals of recognition are important to this group. They had graduation and ceremonies at kindergarten, at preschool, at elementary school, at junior high school, at high school. You get the idea, right? At karate, at dance class, you name it. They've been recognized for their accomplishments, okay? Today's collegians are much more into school spirit than the preceding 2 generations. They're much more like the silent generation and the GI generation in that respect. They really understand and get into school spirit types of things. So award ceremonies, honor societies, things like that are all good things for millennials, okay? And again, the issue of men, not only recruiting them successfully, but keeping them is an important thing that colleges and universities are going to have to adjust to in the next several years. In the classroom, understand, faculty colleagues, that millennials tend to be risk adverse. They've often been taught to the test through their K through 12 years. They tend to be unfamiliar with taking risks of any kind, much less intellectual risks. So we need to structure the instruction so that students who do take risks and come up with the right approach, right, end up helping their team. More about that later. The case study approach works really well with millennials. Problem solving, if you will. Grade inflation is indeed a problem. Their risk aversion is worsened by the notion of grade inflation. They do expect very high grades. Some schools, therefore, actually limit by policy the number of A's awarded. We might experience difficulty counteracting grade inflation without going through a long period of adjustment for these students. If we immediately raise the bar and they no longer continue to get straight A's, it's going to be a retention issue for colleges and universities. But it is something we have to address. Honors programs actually suffer by lower enrollment. Why? Risk aversion. If I join that honors program, am I really going to get the bang for the buck for all the extra work in that honors program? Okay. Faculty, colleagues, if you learn nothing else this morning, learn this one. Millennials are master negotiators. Okay? Beware and be prepared for let's make a deal. All right? They negotiate with everybody. They've been negotiating since the day they were born. My 12-year-old continues to negotiate with us all the time about what she eats, about what she does, what she wears, so on and so forth. Millennials also expect a large amount of structure. They prefer to see crystal clear explanations of what exactly is going to be required for the test, the paper, the assignment, whatever it might be. Grading rubrics are key for this generation. Part of the reason is they've been raised with grading rubrics out in the schools. Grading rubrics are good things, right? Making it clear what the expectations are good things. Next one, team-oriented. This generation is exceedingly team-oriented. Team sports, collaborative learning, community service, you name it, growing up, they've learned to work as a group. Good news, we can use peer pressure as a positive thing now in college and university. Okay? Group projects, peer grading. Big idea, millennials see their peers as a source of help. They're only a phone call away via those cell phones that Cherri was describing, right? That might even take place in class. They might even be tempted on the assignment or the test to go seek help. More about that later. Are they self-absorbed? Actually, no. Service learning has been part of their lives since the day they were born. Really good news for CCU, right? We do an enormous amount of service learning here. They're made for it. They expect this type of thing, right? Today, it's the norm. 1999 Roper survey found that more teenagers blame selfishness than anything else when asked about the major cause of problems in this country. They really see themselves as being other-oriented and team-oriented. Here's a chart that we'll linger on just for a few moments here. You'll notice youth indicators, attitudes, and behaviors. The bottom one is, of course, selfishness. 56% of the population answered selfishness as being the cause of our societal problems. Look at some of the others. People who don't respect the law and authorities, wrongdoing by politicians, lack of parental discipline, and so on. This is a very conventional generation of people who really believe in the institution of government as well as college and university. Millennials are the least Caucasian and most radically and ethnically diverse generation in the United States history. Non-whites and Latinos accounted for 41% of the 23 and under population. 2/3 larger than the boomer generation, nearly 3 times larger than for today's senior citizens. This is the minority share of total students enrolled in U.S. institutions of higher education by ethnic category: Native American, Asian, Latino, non-Latino, Black. Obviously, the trend is for much more diversity on campuses. Be advised, as a result of this, millennials are largely colorblind. Thanks to the end of our Cold War, their excessive travel around the world. My 12-year-old has traveled more internationally than I have. I'll catch up with her after the trip to Poland. Okay? They're becoming the first generation to grow up thinking itself from childhood onward as truly global. For millennials, ethnicity is more a question of mixed identity than racial polarization. They really don't get the racial polarization. Opinion on interracial dating? Not for me, 18%. Love is colorblind, 82% of millennials believe. Right? It's a different world. Thank heavens. So what do we do as a college or university regarding this team-orientedness? Okay. Gen Xers used to say, just do it. Millennials say, let's do it. Peer pressure, again, is gaining a new positive connotation. As the first generation that grew up in the digital age, millennials expect nonstop 24/7 interaction with their peer group. 24/7. And that sometimes includes in your classrooms. More about that in a minute. Peers are key to recruitment and retention. Peers are everything to this group. Okay? College recruiters should take advantage of the strong role of peers in the decision-making process. Kind of like fishing in a school of fish. You catch one, cast right back in, you'll probably catch another. Okay? Use that peer connection for the recruitment and the retention process. Diversity is very appealing to this generation. Diversity of the campus community is a very, very appealing part because of who they are, fundamentally. They really don't see the ethnic diversity the same way we did in our days in college. Millennials demand fairness as well. So, colleges and universities are wise to emphasize how everyone is treated equally, what standards every student is required to meet, and what money cannot buy. If there's an area that millennials struggle with in terms of inequity, it has to do with financial inequity. They really get frustrated with that. They want everything to be on a level playing field. Millennials appreciate the virtual. It's just like Cherri described. They swarm. Took a bunch of my freshmen out for dinner and a movie, and about half of them showed up on time. And lo and behold, the restaurant we couldn't get in, so we were going to change to a different restaurant. And I'm like, well, we got to wait for everybody. No, we don't. Well, how will they know that we've switched restaurants? And they all hold up their cell phones. Don't worry, Dr. Ewen. We'll take care of you. They'll all get there. And they did. They swarmed, if you will, on the fly, and everybody found the new restaurant. So cell phones, right? Online connection, so on. Millennials love group work and they love to congregate. Okay? They see their technologies as much more of a congregation tool, if you will, than a productivity tool. Okay? They do not have to congregate in order to communicate. They now communicate in order to congregate. This is truly something I do not get. And when we go on outdoor leadership trips and things like that, I still bring the radio to talk from vehicle to vehicle. And they laugh while they're talking on their cell phones, right? Millennials believe strongly in civic responsibility. This is really one of the cool attributes of this generation of people, okay? They're voting in larger numbers, folks, as we've seen on the news. College professionals are wise to include students in student involvement and authority over the student rule system, the judicial system and so forth, right? Discipline and campus activity planning and execution as well. Another good news point for CCU, we do this extraordinarily well. What about the classroom? Millennials excel in group work. Colleagues, they really excel in group work. They're good at it. But how can we tell if we give them all group work what the individual has learned? That's important, right? We need to assess that. So a strategy is require students to perform independent assignments that then require them to end in an integration with their colleagues for a presentation or a paper report, that type of thing. Individual work brought together into the group. They love that type of thing. Millennials expect a net. They expect safety, if you will. They don't like walking the tight wire without a net beneath them, right? So when they do encounter difficult people, they expect us in authority, the teachers, to protect them. We need to pay attention to those who do not contribute to the group effort, and then we need to act. If they have a deadbeat in their group, we need to address that. We can't just ignore that, if you will. Okay? Millennials enjoy community. Right? They're especially attracted to living and learning communities. And what is CCU doing right now? We're raising the level of living and learning communities, right? That these students are living in an area while they're also studying a particular area, major, something like that together. And big idea, colleagues on the faculty, millennials collaborate using interactive technologies, okay? We would do well to effectively incorporate meaningful technologies, not just technology for technology's sake, but meaningful technologies into the classroom experience, okay? Instead of smothering their digital age skills, exploit those digital age skills. Don't outlaw their use of laptops in the classroom. Guide them in their use. As they're emailing or texting their friend on the notebook, computer, so on and so forth, I normally will stop them and say, do you understand for my generation that that is an affront, right? That you're ignoring me, so on and so forth. These people are very capable of multitasking, but I just walk them through it. And then lo and behold, I have not had a person not comply with that at this point in my classroom. All right. What else in the classroom? Millennials are practical idealists, right? These folks expect practicalities, not highfalutin theories, and so on. This means a growing interest in majors and degrees that can easily fit into conventional career definitions, okay? As an aside, ethnic studies is quickly shifting away from traditional black-white focus to cutting-edge areas of Latin America, Asian, and Islamic studies. Again, global. They don't just see it as national issues anymore. They really don't. Okay. Millennials, again, are committed to civic life. Okay. As they become more interested in our nation's civic life, okay, interest in social sciences is increasing, applied sciences, and statistics. They really want to understand what those stats really mean. It includes economics, government, political history, military history, forensics. Huge desire more for forensics, debate, and things like that. Okay, we would do well to start adjusting to some of these things. Unfortunately, it's also predicted by many that the humanities may well decline in enrollment with this population. Fifth of the 7 core traits, these people are conventional in nature. They take pride in improving their behavior, and they're very comfortable with their parents' values. In other words, they provide a modern twist to the traditional belief that social rules and standards make life easier. Again, they've been raised in this zero-tolerance environment, if you will. Okay. Teenagers now contend that their parents are indeed in touch with their lives and consider their parents overwhelmingly as their friends. I never thought of my dad that way. Right? 80% of teenagers reported having really important talks with their parents, and 94% mostly or totally agree with the statement, I can always trust my parents to be there when I need them. Do you see this notion of co-purchasing again? They really are partners with their parents, much more than any other generation. Are they rule breakers? Absolutely not. They're rule followers. Okay. Violent crime among teens has dropped 70% over the past 10 years. Yes, we see terrible school shootings and things like that, but they are by far in the minority for this generation of students. Rates of teen pregnancy and abortion are down. High school sexual activity is down. Rates of alcohol and tobacco consumption are hitting all-time lows with this generation. Okay? A few charts to support that, if you will. Serious violent crime rate of offenders and victims. You can see over the years now with this generation it's plummeting. Share of high school students from 1991 to 2005 who report having, in the blue line, rarely or never worn a seatbelt. Why do you suppose millennials would be really in line with wearing seatbelts? They were raised with it, right? The van never left the driveway until everybody was buckled in, right? Okay? They're used to it. Or drove when drinking alcohol, carried a weapon on school property. The numbers are down. Okay. National U.S. Freshman Survey activities done at least occasionally in the past year. Attended a religious service is the blue line. Drank beer is the red line. Both simultaneously? I don't know. Share of kids aged 12 to 17 having specified drug use within the last month, right? Alcohol is the blue line, cigarettes the red line, any illicit drug the green line. Again, the trends are all down. This is a rule-following generation. They do like to know the rules ahead of time. Oops. Okay. Are they distrustful? No, they accept authority. Most teens say they identify, again, with their parents' values. Okay. A recent survey found 82% of teens reported no problems with any family member versus just 48% who said that back in 1974. This is a big one, half of the teens today say they trust government to do what's right all or most of the time. And all the boomers are groaning. We don't trust government, right? They do. That may mean something in terms of voting trends over the next several years, okay? And a large majority of teens favor tougher rules against misbehavior in the classroom and society at large, not easier rules. So, what does this mean for recruiting and admissions? Big idea, brand matters to millennials. Big brands are big with millennials, okay? Students are drawn to campuses that they perceive as being full of others who are much like themselves. In other words, community. Values-aligned education matters to millennials, right? They're attracted to a university that has faculty members, curriculum, and deeply held traditions that will resonate with their timeless and unchanging values. Does that sound familiar? Eternal values and so forth. That's really good news for faith-based schools, okay? And millennials generally are not interested in being unconventional, okay? They brand themselves for life as smart and capable members of the mainstream in society. Millennials respect institutions, but with that respect comes higher expectations. They count on us adults to be exemplary, right? To practice what we preach, and they're going to call us on it when we don't. If we tell them no misspellings, they expect no misspellings from us. If we tell them get to class on time, we better be on class on time and early, right? They're used to accepting social rules that have been imposed upon them, again, the zero tolerance society, if you will, but they expect those in authority to support such good behavior by supporting those who follow convention. In other words, don't spend your time on the kid in the class who's disruptive. Spend your time on those of us who are good students. Recognize me. Be proud of me for being an exemplary student. We need to start recognizing that. In the classroom, millennials also have very high expectations. Listen closely, colleagues on the faculty. Those who fail to learn new approaches to teaching and learning, or who grade their students in an arbitrary and capricious manner, will suffer. Listen closely, administrators. Administrators who fail to remove incompetent or unprepared professors are going to hear about it, perhaps even be sued over it. They're paying a lot of money. They expect top drawer academics in the classroom. Millennials have different social expectations, right? College professionals would do well to spend time to acquaint the millennials with cross-cultural differences, including generational differences. The millennials have never failed to adjust in my expectations. I tell my millennial students that it is an affront to me if you wear your hat inside the classroom or inside the building. and they are quick to adjust and take them off, and they don't mind doing it. But I don't do it in a punitive approach. I explain. Do you understand? To me and my generation, this is not normal behavior, right? And then they expect me to adjust to their generation as well. Just like I do not expect to go to Poland and see nothing but Americans, right? I expect that they will understand that I am American and not Polish. We have to meet the millennials somewhere in the middle. We can't expect them to be us, and I can certainly say that this boomer can't be a millennial. Not going to happen, all right? They're used to living in a rule-bound world. They're a generation willing to be led, but only when the expectations are crystal clear. In the classroom, millennials tend to be generalists as opposed to specialists. A rising number of schools, therefore, are requiring all incoming freshmen to move through a standard set of required courses as a cohort, as a group. Block scheduling, if you will. Millennials also believe in the norms of the group, okay? It seems useless to this generation to be an original that no one will imitate and a leader that no one will follow. They expect normative behavior of their peers, right? And they value professionalism over passion. Big, big difference between the baby boomer generation, okay? In determining course content, professors need to keep that in mind because our various causes of the 1960s and 1970s are as chronologically distant from today's millennials as World War I and prohibition were to us when we were in college. We need to stay up to date, folks. Sixth of the core traits for millennials, they are pressured. They're pushed very heavily to study hard, avoid personal risks, take full advantage of opportunities. It's been said that millennials actually feel a trophy kid pressure to excel. You see all the bumper stickers, you know, honor student from this, that, and the other thing, and so on. My dad had a bumper sticker, thank heavens my kid is still in school. You know, that type of deal. Totally different for the millennials, okay? Busy, busy, busy this generation is. Busy around the clock. My 12-year-old is wearing me out. My wife and I are her personal chauffeurs at this point in time, and the miles just keep adding up, okay? Millennials may well be America's busiest people. The new reality is structure, planning, and supervision are key, all the way from kindergarten through college. 10-year-old Stephanie told Time magazine, I don't have time to be a kid. And if you look at their jam schedules, I think you'll see that. There's a great commercial out there now where the mom is trying to organize something and the kids all the way down to the 2-year-old, you know, I can't fit that in, I've got a this and a that and so on and so forth. It's absolutely true. And it's true of our students as well. Very busy. School is up by 8.3 hours per week. Household chores up by 3.5 hours. Personal care, big one in my house. When I married off my daughter, I didn't lose a daughter, I gained a bathroom. Travel and visiting, this is a key one. Up 2.5 hours per week, which includes visits to non-custodial parents, right? Time spent in transit to and from soccer games, karate, music lessons, you get the idea. They spend a lot of time in transit, usually with their iPods plugged into their ears, reading a book while surfing the web. Busy, busy, busy. Look here on this scale. This is informative, okay? Where are they spending their time? Up 169% on visiting and traveling, up 138% on household chores, up 86% on organized sports. You get the idea. Where are we down? Time spent eating. It doesn't mean that they don't eat. They just shovel it in and get going. Watch sometimes in the cafeteria as their rear end barely touches the chair. They're up. They're putting their tray back. They're done. They're eating on their way to fill in the blank. Okay? TV is actually down. They're spending a lot more time online. Okay? Free play And crime of all crimes, the outdoors, is way down. Thankfully, we can do something there, because we live in Colorado, right? Here's one for my faculty colleagues. Hours spent per week by students. Outside of class is the green. Inside of class is the red. Of the green, studying, 37.5 hours at best, that's the blue. Other, 118 hours. Now that 37.5 hours is at best. That's that theoretical thing, you know, study 3 hours for every hour you are in class, and so forth. At best, at absolute best, they're spending 30% of their time on academic issues. They're spending the rest of their time on other things. All right? Yet, at the same time, look at this. Increasing number of students expect to get a great job to pay for college expenses, get a master's or doctoral degree, and make at least a B average, right? While spending less time on their classwork. Do you see a conflict? Pressured, what do? Recruiting and admissions. Millennials' desire and what they're competing over is admission into the most intense academic environments where the stress will continue. They are used to stress, particularly academic stress, okay? What demoralizes millennials is not the pressure per se, but situations in which their best effort doesn't ensure success. In other words, an A, A+. And I suspect my colleagues see this in the classroom now. But I tried hard. Millennials desire clarity. They're really big on this. One of the things we could do in the recruitment and admissions process, our message should be loud and clear. Yes, students work very hard at CCU, but we help to make sure that all their hard work will pay off. This is a group that will rise to the occasion if you put them to the test. Millennials also desire balance, work versus play, right? So we need to consider that as well. They're prone to suffer occasional periods of burnout, just like we all are, right? So a lot of colleges are starting to put in things like kickball and frisbee and so forth, where it's not a formal thing that you have to schedule. You just kind of get together and do it, right? I like this one. Millennials enjoy stress-free chill zones, right? Quiet, out-of-the-way places where they can gather to play either high-tech video games, low-tech ping pong, or just sit on cushy couches. Be advised, they expect these chill zones to be available 24/7, right? So if it's 3 in the morning and they want to go over to the student union to play ping pong, they expect it to be open. In the classroom, understand that the pressure for academic success can lead to cheating. Now I want you to understand and notice that I've got the word cheating there in quotes, because we in different generations see cheating differently. Remember, they're really into the concept of helping one another. So we need to simply address that and walk them through that, if you will. They're interested in results, not process, okay? They're not as interested in all that theoretical stuff, so on and so forth. They're interested in what's going to get me past the test, the great job, that type of thing, okay? They're used to being very busy. They have a tendency to overextend their schedules, and where they look for grace is in the classroom. They expect us in the classroom to adjust our expectations to their busy social schedule. I'm sorry, I couldn't be at class. I had a fill in the blank, choir, football, whatever it might be. And the idea is for the academic side of the equation to adjust. We need to be very careful with that one so we don't feed into that. Okay? Last of the core traits for millennials, this is a very achieving generation. They've become a generation focused on achievement, and they're doing it. Okay? Are they stupid? Absolutely not. Since the 1980s, grade school aptitude test scores have been rising or flat across all subjects. 73% of high school students today say they want a 4-year college degree. That's good. It's up. They want to go to college. 8 in 10 teenagers say it's cool to be smart. I've seen that change definitively over the last 10 years or so, that the smart kid is no longer considered the nerd, but really, somebody to be admired. Here's an interesting one. Take a look at these National Spelling Bee winning words. 1932, knack. 2006, I have no idea how to pronounce that word, much less spell it, right? Thank you. Number of AP exams, right? Successful AP exams on the rise. A lot of kids are coming in with a lot more credit based on AP exams as well. We need to recognize that, okay? Total number of students enrolled in U.S. institutions of higher learning, it's totally on the rise, moving up very rapidly. What do we do in recruiting and admissions to deal with this achieving generation, right? Understand that competition between admissions offices is going to rise. Schools who fail to recognize that are going to decline, right? Millennials want to participate in a strong and diverse community life as well. And the best students expect perks, whether that's recognition of their academic record in the form of scholarships and so forth, or special classes. Magnet institutions are going to need a lot of scholarship funds available. Okay. Millennial college students engage a lot in extracurricular activities, but non-traditional ones that you and I would be more familiar with. Need to recognize that. They expect top drawer technologies as a foundation. We think wireless is cool. They think it's foundational, and it better pick up in speed. I mean, honest. This is a foundational issue for them, okay? And really big idea, their notion of drug use is different. You want to know what drugs are up? It's performance-enhancing drugs. Ritalin, Adderall, Provigil, and things like that. They're not doing drugs to escape like the boomers did. They're doing drugs to excel. We need to pay more attention to that in terms of the prescription drug abuse issues, okay? In the classroom, millennials do enjoy grand challenges, okay? They do want, though, that their performance be measured objectively, not subjectively. They will really, really rebel against subjective grading, okay? Millennials and their parents expect a lot, right? They increasingly want higher academic standards, smaller classes, clearer grading practices, a lot more feedback, and a new millennial era mixture of traditional values with cutting-edge technology. And millennials demand fairness. Clear grading rubrics are key. They excel with clarity of mission, okay? And they expect and demand in-class technologies. That is a foundational issue for them, including using their own technologies. Again, don't take away their laptop. Walk them through how to use it properly in a classroom setting. So we covered these 7 core traits, right? And we showed how those 7 core traits relate to each one of the 3 areas, recruiting and admissions, the classroom, and campus life. There is an 8th overriding trait that needs to be added in here. In addition to all the 7 that we've gone through so far, millennials are digital. This is the first generation of human beings that have been bathed in bits since the day they were born. They expect it as foundational, okay? We would do well to adjust all of our processes to the digital realm because it is the way they work, okay? So for a college to compete, it has to offer personal and very exciting experience with high-quality faculty and cutting-edge technology. We're basically adjusting to a new crop of students who are close to their parents, focused on grades and performance, focused on the college admissions process, packing their resumes with lots of extracurricular activities, eager to volunteer for community service, very talented in their digital mobile technologies, capable of multitasking, and they're very interested in interactive learning, more interested in math and science relative to the humanities, and very insistent on secure, regulated environments, respectful of norms and traditions and institutions, conventionally minded, verging almost on conformist thinking, particularly to their generation, ethnically diverse, and a majority female. Millennials are also very numerous and very intent on going to college. That's good news for magnet institution. And it's making all of those trends more consequential for all of us. Okay? So, some questions to consider in closing my part. What is the product that millennials and their parents are seeking from a college or university? If you said an education, you're only partially correct. Millennials and their parents are looking for a complete college experience, the package. And they hope that that package includes education. It is no longer the primary thing. It's the entire experience, if you will. All right?
Gary, thank you for the research that you shared. Thanks. I want you to listen carefully. We have intentionally put the segment on adult learners in sandwich between some things you'll hear from Jim associated with traditional students, because we wanted to juxtaposition some of the things that are so strikingly different and some of the things that are actually the same. And so as we go through here in the next 15 minutes or so, I want you to listen for those differences and those similarities. Our approaches, interestingly enough, are the same. I think sometimes we think things are more different than they actually are. I put this slide up. Adult success in college is key to America's and CCU's future. I'd like you to think about that for a moment. I didn't say it was the key. I said it was key. Stop and think about our circumstances here at CCU. Today we have the opportunity to serve almost 1,700 adult students, 940 some traditional age students, and by God's grace both populations are growing. We're having the opportunity to have an impact in their lives. What part of the total opportunity might that be? As I share in just over these next couple of minutes, I'd like you to think about what will it take for CCU to become a magnet for adult learners. How might that be the same? How might that be different? And you're going to hear me lump undergraduate and graduate students together for most of this conversation. There are some differences, but frankly, very few. What's the opportunity? The opportunity is 60%. I find this oftentimes surprises people. The quote, traditional student has not been the majority student for some time. 60% of the students in the U.S. higher education can be characterized as non-traditional or adult. And over 15 million students in U.S. higher education are over 25 years of age. There's a great blurring of distinctions. I love the slide that Gary put up early that talked about the millennials will be the adult students for the next 50 years. Those people who might wonder, why do we do these things together? This is why we do these things together. We're in this ministry, this ministry of education together. One of the things that there's a great deal of research and writing on today is this notion of becoming an adaptive academy. I can't say that 3 times real fast. An adaptive academy. And as that relates to becoming a magnet university, it considers what do we do to attract top adult undergraduate and graduate adult learners by becoming that? What does that mean? Gary laid a foundation founded on deep and broad research for illustrating the kind of change that has to take place, not just for millennials, but those millennials have parents. Those parents are adult learners. Do we think that the millennials are not changing their parents? They are, in very profound ways. And we deal with that every day in the classroom. So becoming an adaptive organization that responds to unique learning and engagement needs of all its students. Much of what Gary talked about with millennials, the kind of the relationship they have with one another in communities, the always-on syndrome of 24 hours a day being in communication. Those are engagement, those represent engagement needs, and they are true for adult learners as well. They just have a different face, a different look. The Lumina Foundation found that, unfortunately, most higher education institutions are still trying to educate adult learners by putting them through largely the same systems, processes, policies, practices, cultures that we've traditionally associated with traditional students. Now think of the tension in colleges and universities today. You've just heard Gary lay a great foundation for why we need to be adaptive. If we want to win this generation and prepare the younger students who are here on campus in this living, learning community, think of what the ramifications of that are for the adult learners. The adult learner who comes in just in time. They arrive panting in time for their 6 o'clock class, and they're out of there at 10. Where's the engagement? What's the opportunity for engagement? It means something totally different today for the staff that work in our centers or that work online. We have to intentionally reach out and engage because it doesn't happen. We don't have the proximity that you have, for example, on the campus here in Lakewood. We need to study adult learners. Let me just go through some things real quickly. Some might not surprise you and some might. Where do they come from? In the context of education, most adult learners come from high school, from employment, from unemployment, from military service, and from some kind of previous college study. What kind of previous study? Some without degrees but credits, some from vocational or occupational certificates and licenses. They've been working in a profession for years that's not recognized by accredited institutions. What do you mean it's not recognized? I have a license, I've got years of experience in this field, I know how to work with people, I work with high-level math. What are you going to do with me? Some come with associate degrees from community colleges, from four-year institutions. An increasing number of institutions, four-year institutions, offer associate degrees. I discovered the other day that some people here at CCU don't know that we offer associate degrees in the College of Adult and Graduate Studies. We'd like to give the student the opportunity to put closure on that group of courses that on the undergraduate campus we call general education. In a community college called associate degrees, in the Air Force called associate degrees, Harvard called associate degrees, Northwestern called associate degrees. You're seeing institutions who saw one kind of education as their responsibility in the past and their opportunity, those edges become blurred. In our case, it enables our students to take the next step toward their bachelor's degree. Some are coming with other baccalaureate degrees. Some are coming with graduate degrees. We have an increasing number of students enrolling, sometimes even in undergraduate programs that have graduate degrees, because they find themselves a long way along in a career that they're looking out there and they're saying, this one's at an end. Used to tell college graduates that on average you'd hold 7 significant occupational career-oriented positions in the course of your work life. When was the last time anybody heard the number 7? Last number I saw was 18. Millennials take that as just a regular course of life. Adult students are paralyzed with fear, depending on how far along that continuum in age and career that they're in. So they come with a variety of different previous study backgrounds. I'm going to offer a couple of what I'll call magnet tips this morning. These may not be things that you think about every day. Most adult learners have not failed academically. I run into all the time in the community, particularly in the community of higher education, that ought to know better. this assumption that the reason people are back now or coming for education now is because somehow they didn't make it, couldn't make it sometime in the past. We do serve some students that are at-risk students who earlier in life chose to do other things, focus on other things. But interestingly enough, those at-risk students are oftentimes the most motivated, persistent students we have. Some are here because they're trying to beat the Millennials to the commencement podium. Some are trying to get there to prove to their children that they should go. There's all kinds of things that go with that. So I want to encourage you, help us debunk that common myth. We've got national merit scholars who, for whatever reason, got interrupted in life who come through our programs. And we have students who many years after high school went and got a GED, and now many years later are coming. So it's a full spectrum, very diverse. What do we know about them? I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. We know that rarely are adult learners here for continuous enrollment. That's why we have 5-week blocks, 7-week blocks, and we don't talk about dropouts, we talk about stopouts. We trigger, if you will, dropout retention responses when they're out 2 blocks. But 1 block, hey, they went to England for 3 weeks. They got shipped to Iraq for 4 months. A couple of our students out of our Southern Colorado Center are finishing their degrees online from Iraq. A different world, even for our adult students. The vast majority are part-time. They're not full-time. They're full-time in terms of credit hours for purposes of both completing their degrees and qualifying for aid, but by behavior we would call them part-time students. Many are not fully eligible for federal financial aid. Why? Because they might be marginally employed or employed at a level that doesn't allow them to receive that kind of assistance. 97% of CCU's adult learners are employed. Many adult undergrads are first-generation college goers, though, so they don't necessarily have people who've paved the way, who've shown them what it takes. According to the National Center of Educational Statistics research, they have post-baccalaureate education aspirations. They're not just coming here to get a degree. They have goals of going on. 25% desire to go on to graduate work at either the master's or the doctorate level, and another 24% being the next highest group already have professional or baccalaureate degrees but are seeking higher level professional licensure. So they might be our students coming back through alternative licensing that have a career, now feel called to teaching and are finding another way to get that license in order to be able to do that. Interestingly enough, at CCU, this is another one that I was surprised the other day to find that some of the members of our community don't know. One of the differences between the College of Adult and Graduate Studies focus and the College of Undergraduate Studies focus is that we intentionally enroll individuals who do not have faith in Christ. And it is our desire to see by the integration of faith in the classroom, the testimony of the faculty, the experience with the staff, to touch them in such a way, be used by God in such a way that they might come into that relationship. And that for those who are believers, that they might be further equipped and become reproductive Christians, influencing others for Christ. We're privileged to have about 60% of our students give some indication of faith prior to coming. About 40% do not. And so that makes for a very different classroom. Think of a discussion of ethics, bioethics, and how that might be a different kind of discussion than you might have in a classroom on campus. Although they are older than traditional age students, undergraduate adult learners are nonetheless often early in their work lives. We have kind of a bimodal curve. Those of you that have had stats already, we got this bubble between 25 and 33. Then we got another bubble between about 38 and 47. And somehow you have this mystical person walking around that's an average age of 34. There aren't many of those. That bimodal curve then represents some different things in terms of characteristics of those two groups. New avenues to post-secondary attainment are emerging. It's a highly competitive environment. The fastest growing segment of higher education is the competition for the person who's between 25 and 40. More new institutions, more for-profit institutions, more government institutions, more corporations. $20 billion spent by corporations on education, for which they now are applying to regional accrediting organizations to get college credit and award college credit. We used to compete with the college down the street. Now we compete with the world. And they are not digital natives. Okay, that was not a coffee holder. That was a CD or DVD. And, ITG could tell you stories of serving those individuals. Another magnet tip: don't call a non-traditional student a non-traditional student, because they've learned that there is a pejorative in our society. It goes back to that sense that they must not have gotten it together enough earlier sometime, or they would have gone through when they were a traditional student. Adult learners with focus groups, adult learners is a respected, continuing education is a respected label, but don't do this one. What attracts them to a university? This is going to be very different from what you heard from Gary. These are not in absolute rank order, first being most important. There's a number of different swipes at this by different researchers. I've tried to blend those here. Some of them will change one or two positions, but in general, they fall roughly on the tops and the bottom of the list appropriately. Time to program completion. The number one thing that an adult student wants to know, whether they're an undergraduate or graduate, is how soon will I be done? Second, and related to that, is what are the alternatives for my satisfying those degree requirements, those things you call credits, that you call courses, that you call gen eds, that you call electives, whatever those are. Do you have a multitude of ways that I can do that? Because they've figured out that if there are alternatives, they can probably shorten their time and reduce their cost. No surprises why those are the things we talk about. Go to the website, talk about that. They're very, very, very focused, and I think this is true. Gary, it wasn't teased out specifically in what you shared, but they are very program-oriented. They want to hear about the programs. They want to hear about them in detail. And they're concerned about program from the standpoint of quality, as well as, again, the combination of quality and how fast. The graduate level, they're very concerned about program. They will stay on program as their first priority, even if it takes them longer. An adult undergraduate student does not react the same way. Boomers want to get the degree, get it in hand, and get on. And so that's a difference. Relevance of curriculum and teaching to their individual lives. They want to know there's relevance in every class. They want to know that there's respect for their experience and their responsibilities. They came from taking that 12-year-old to karate and taking them to wherever and running them around. And they came from a full-time job. And a spouse is sick that needs to be taken care of. And life is happening to them. They're in life. It's not down the road. It's here. It's now. And so they want respect for that. They want a faculty member that understands that doesn't compromise, but understands that. Preference for faculty with both academic and professional experience. Very clear. To Gary's point earlier, across all of those adult generations, they're interested in theory and practice. They want to know the why. You know, boomers. That's the first question boomers ask. Why? Not how, what, or where. Why? They have to have that. High expectations of prompt personal assistance. This is something they want it. They want it now. They have busy lives. They're popping out. They don't want to call back. They want the answer now. Reputation of faculty members and the faculty members' work is important to them. Quickly go through these last. Opportunities to connect with other students and learn from one another. Safe parking and building access. Now we're getting down to grassroots stuff. They won't come to a center. I had a fellow ask me one time, and I asked at least a couple people in this room when we were looking at centers, would you send your wife or your daughter there at 6 at night and have them come out at 10 at night? Parking, safety, big issues. So safety, these are the parents of those other younger students. Proximity to work and home. We have what we call the 20-20 sweet spot. If we can find locations that are within 20 minutes of their work, that's where they're coming from, because 97% are employed, and 20 minutes of home, that's the perfect sweet spot for us for delivering. If you have to compromise, you'll see that on the next page. They want buildings and classrooms. They'll come in their flip-flops and their shorts and their t-shirts. They stuff them in a bag in the backseat of the car. I don't know where they change. I haven't seen any phone booths recently with opaque sides, but they somehow get changed and get in class. But when they come to class, they want to come in a first-class office setting, first-class classrooms, technology, because to them it symbolizes quality. Increasingly high expectations for work and technology support. That's not unique to the digital age, although the digital natives are certainly more aware of what's possible. They are less aware of what's possible and how it works, but they still want it. It's an important thing. And finally, I just thought I'd include CAGS focus groups that we've done when we've been relocating centers. We've discovered they have an intolerance for driving. They have a tolerance for drive distance, but not drive time. This is a big one, the next one on here, proximity to food. Now think about that. They're coming from work, they got 20 minutes, they got to change clothes in there someplace, some of them, and they still have got to eat, and we want them to eat, because otherwise 2 hours in, think about teaching that class. Availability of academic advising and career coaching. Notice the last 3 words, not career planning, not job placement, coaching. They want to know from the business executive, what's the next step for me? How do I protect? How do I advance? How do I change in this dynamic work world? I'm going to skip one thing here and just go to the sheet that I just skipped is just kind of a scorecard. And I think Gary has done a good job with talking about the way that we would assess ourselves and how we're doing as a magnet institution. I'm going to land on these 2 slides, next 2 slides, just for a minute. Who's the most influential in recruiting top adult undergraduate students? Longitudinal research says, in this order, faculty are the most influential. Students are the next most influential. Now you're going to notice something about this. I artificially skewed this because you're going to notice that these are all people within the community. These are all people within the CCU community, if you think of it that way. There are other influencers. Obviously with millennials, there are parents, there can be high school counselors, there can be peers. But of those people that are part of this community who can influence as a magnet attracting students, this is the order of influence in terms of their significance. We were going to fly all these numbers on and quiz you, but we decided in deference to time, we'll just give them to you. So undergraduate, now lock those numbers in your mind. I'm going to show you exactly the same circles. We're going to look at graduate students. You see the change? I want to call your attention to this, and understand I have deep respect and appreciate the work our enrollment counselors are doing and our mission staff are doing in CUS and CAGS. But look at this internal community. Who is the least trusted one, in a sense? They expect to hear the good things. They expect to be treated kindly, of course, by the sales staff. Their words, not mine. But it is these others, influencers, that make the most significant impact on them. I'm leading to the bottom line there. Referrals are, in fact, the most efficient recruitment strategy in higher education. Getting a referral from one of these groups is huge. They represent both the lowest cost of acquisition per student that enrolls. You can become a recruiting magnet, and I'm going to finish on these 2 slides. Tell your CCU story. You have one. You're here. You're interacting with each other. Every one of us have a CCU story. Tell your CCU story. If you're one of those people that feels a little uncomfortable doing that, practice your elevator conversation in front of the mirror. Do it with a couple of colleagues. What would the elevator story look like if you were standing in the supermarket line? Or if you were having your hair cut? Or you're talking to your mechanic? What might that supermarket story look like? I was standing there the other day up at the little quick lube change up here at Union and Alameda, and a young woman who was helping me across the counter, checking me through the, paying for having your car lubed, I heard her complaining on the phone to somebody that was significant to her about this job that she was in. She got off the phone. She said, "You come in here all the time." And I said, "Yes, I work someplace that you ought to come and visit." And then we got into a conversation. She took the business card, but that's not where we stop. We're going to call her. I have her card. So tell your story. Make referrals and close the communication loop. If you pass a name along, call and check and see what happened to it. None of us that work with enrolling students will be offended. We'll be glad you did. Close the loop. Ask for referrals and pass them along. Don't be embarrassed. Are we really embarrassed? We have good stories to tell, great stories to tell. If you're asked to host a prospective student, jump at the chance. Don't do somebody a favor, jump at the chance. The students will pick up on your enthusiasm or your reluctance. Let people know you're proud to be used by God here at CCU in the process of transforming lives. Some of these are different dimensions of the same thing. Tell positive student stories. Don't guess or improvise. Please don't improvise. That always gets us in trouble. Find out the truth, okay? The most significant thing that you can do as a retention magnet, if I can focus the magnet on that for a moment, is to provide caring personal attention. And let me break that down just for a moment. Students tell us no matter what age, adults, millennials, octogenarians, along the continuum, what speed of response tells them is that they're important. How fast you get back to them tells them right at the get-go, consciously and unconsciously, how important are they to you. Personalization, that is how personal, how much you're recognizing them as an individual. Personalization tells them that they're not an individual. Accuracy. They call and ask you something about financial aid, and you answer something about sports. Accuracy in response to stated needs says to them you listened. We asked students that, and they said, well, that person didn't listen. Well, we saw them listening. No, they answered something other than I asked. They weren't listening. Caring enough to respond and listen well enough that we actually respond to needs that we recognize they have, even if they didn't say them, is huge. There's a series of books out that talk about knock your socks off care and service. Have you had that experience? You went in, you asked for something, you got that, and they gave you even more, and you really needed it? That's a special kind of listening and care. And finally, the E in this space acrostic, be enthusiastic and encouraging. Kindness restores the soul. How we go about this is huge. It's good to have the opportunity to share with you about adults. I think you see some of the great similarities in how we approach and how we need to approach in being magnets. And clearly, I would just want to draw your attention to one other thing about a magnet. There is no neutrality. You either attract or you repel.
Well, it is good to see everybody. If I can get that right here. There we go. Today, Gary, what's that top age of millennials right now?
26.
Who's 26 and under in here right now? It's Millennials Serving Millennials is our next Strategic Objectives workshop in 2 weeks. When I was asked to join this group a few weeks ago to talk a little bit about being a magnet institution, the Holy Spirit just almost immediately gave me this verse. And it's a verse that we're all very familiar with in our Christian circles. But we are a city on a hill at CCU. We are the only Christian school in the Rocky Mountain region. I talked to a friend of mine at Central Christian the other day out in Kansas. He said that there are 20 Christian schools up and down an interstate that he's around. We have no Christian schools around us, anyone who's even trying to do that. We are literally a city on the hill. So to me, becoming a magnet institution is how do we continue to shine our light? How do we continue to be the city that is on the hill, that is shining the light? You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house or in Colorado or in the Rocky Mountain region. In the same way, let your light shine. How do we become a city on a hill with a light that is a beacon to those who need what we offer? And you know, when it comes right down to it, as Cherri says, it is not about facilities or programs. It's about us. We are the magnets, the individuals of CCU, the folks that come here every day. And why I love this strategic objective is that many of us are sitting in this room after giving decades of our life to this place because we believe in what makes CCU great, and we believe in the vision and the potential of CCU. Many of us that I talk to around this room talk about the potential of CCU. That we are here because of that potential. We are here because of things that are moving toward that potential. And that's what makes a magnet institution, in my mind, is all of us moving toward the potential and realizing that potential one step at a time as we go along. If you would give me a little license, I'd like to talk a little further and challenge us on what CCU could be if they were a magnet. The first one would be that we would be distinctively Christian. And we would stand against the world for Christ. I was with 3 couples the other day, all older than me, who were talking about a local high school that they had sent, Christian high school they had sent their kids to. They were, consensus, they said to me this, they were more concerned about the education than the character or the spiritual development. And what we're trying to do here is be a magnet for both prongs, 2 prongs. Character and spiritual development and the education aren't separate. They are together and intertwined. That we have faculty and employees who set the stage every day with a firm commitment to our mission. We go the extra mile educationally, spiritually, and emotionally. It's not about loving processes, it's about loving our customers and our students. That's what sets the stage to be a magnet institution. We have programs academically and extracurricularly that meet the need of the individual, the culture, and the kingdom. That's what I love about Christian higher education. We have programs that meet individual needs, but we're also having programs that impact our culture and ultimately the kingdom that the Lord has asked us to impact. That we fully embrace the meaning of a small teaching Christian university. One of the things that I try to do in student life is ask all of our staff in student life that at every time they come into a situation where they're trying to solve something or answer something, that they have this overview of what do parents and students expect from a small Christian college. That would be our guide to everything that we do. Because if you get it down to that level, a small teaching Christian university is what these parents want, and they have expectations of that, and we need to continue to hook up with those. That technology becomes a means to our ends in training students to advance His kingdom in all of those ways. That we exude a mission direction that is compelling to the Christian world, intriguing to the non-Christian world, and flat out a draw to excellent people to make the mission flow. And I have 3 examples of this that are very interesting to me. One is I have I have had a prayer and share group over the last 20 years. Some of you know about that group because of Haley Theander, a daughter of one of the people in that group that passed away recently, who are very compelled to what CCU is about from the beginning of the time that I started to work here and talking to them. Very compelled about what we're doing here. Christians all the time, when I speak in other areas, I was at a church the other night and mentioned I was from CCU, and I had a line of 4 or 5 parents after me The president was at Faith Bible Chapel a couple of weeks ago. Some 20 people were up to him talking about what is going on at CCU. It's very compelling. One of the daughters of that prayer and share group, our oldest of the 4 couples, came here to CCU this year from New Hampshire because they were compelled about what was going on at CCU. Intriguing to the non-Christian world, I think, is an interesting one. My wife just left an elementary school, moved elementary schools this year, and that last elementary school that she was in, with a very underscore, I shouldn't have underscored that, with a very underscore non-Christian principal. That principal will only take CCU student teachers in her school. And as I talked to her with the margarita pictures behind her at her desk of her spring break in Panama, she tells me I am very intrigued about the character and the moral standards that I see from your students. I won't even accept another student teacher in my school. Intriguing to the non-Christian world. And then flat out a draw to excellent people to make our mission go. A trend that is interesting lately for me that I shared with my staff a little while ago is that people that worked in student life and worked at the university in the 90s are starting to call me lately about getting back to CCU. There are people that have gone out and have done other things or become more excellent in their areas, and there's something here that's magnetizing them back. And Jim, how can I get back to CCU? How can I join what's going on there? That's when we know we've become a magnet university. And then finally in this section that we spawn alumni who are making a difference for the world, for God's plan and their communities through their character, service, and commitment to Christ's way of living. Now we need more of these, but we've got some great ones. These are graduates with motivated spirituality that want to move out and make a difference with their calling, what the Lord has purposed them for the world. These are people like Ruth Kane, who is running around the world with the basketball ministry, sharing her testimony, like Sandra Hopkinson and Nick and Kim Todd and Jarsh Bernard, who are sitting in China right now for years teaching English, like Matt Coleman, who's in the Caucasus Mountains in Russia, like Becky Hayward, who is running the accounting department up at Noodles and Company in Longmont, like Sid Breezer, who's the head of music education for 5 elementary schools right here in our own backyard, like Jordan Olivero, who is sharing his testimony every day and was in this week for vows at the Pentagon, like Matt Hartman and Chris Peel, who are in local large churches as youth ministers. These help us become a magnet institution because they reflect who we are, what our values are, what we did for them as we go. To become a magnet institution, we need to do a few things, and I think we've got work to do in all of these areas. I want to go over these quickly in each area. One is to define ourselves, to continue to get our beliefs and principles solidified, that they become something that is an obsession for us, that we know exactly who we are and what we want to be. We become an enterprise from which others can learn. You know, I still take about a call a week from another Christian school who is wondering what the heck this Life Direction Center thing is. We're hearing about it. How could we start that? How did you do it? That is something that other Christian schools are saying, we're measuring ourselves by what you're doing there, and we think that is a magnet thing that you're doing here. That we can't do everything, that we realize that differentiation among a large landscape may not be something that a small Christian college can really handle and can really do well. So what are our unique core competencies? Gary talks about these a lot. Unique core competencies. I know that our business area talks about these a lot too with our students. We need to make sure that what we're doing is exactly what we should be doing and that we can do them well. So instead of trying to do 100 things well, maybe it's only 15 things that we can do well and become a magnet for. What are those? And unfortunately, that comes down to some hard work in terms of what programs across the university, both academic and extracurricularly, are we not doing well and need to be moved on from. One of Parker Palmer's 5 fears of leadership. Number 5 is fear of death, that leaders fear death. And what that means is that leaders fear the death of programs, something they put in place. They want to keep it on life support. Sometimes we need to move it away and say, we can't do that well. We need to take those resources and put it into something that we are doing very well. That we need to create value. That every time we come in contact with a customer, we have a chance to win or lose. We have a chance to make an impression on that student or unfortunately put maybe another thing on their list that's not working for them here. The value proposition is really key for the students today, and actually the value proposition is 100% key for us at CCU because, as many of our students tell us, they can go to Metro for a lot cheaper. Why am I here spending the money, taking the loans? It's because of the value proposition. That one we have to embrace in a way that we can just take home and become obsessive about. That yes, it's expensive to be here, but you're going to get a holistic Christian education that's going to make you top-notch in your field because of the knowledge and the academic training that you got, and is going to help you move toward what the Lord wants you to do for His kingdom as well. We have to be obsessed about service recovery. Gary uses this all the time, this example that at Disneyland, if an employee, no matter what employee, sees a kid drop his ice cream cone on the ground, it's, we're getting you a new ice cream cone right now. What is it about recovering from service opportunities? We're always going to have opportunities where we don't do it quite right or fail just a little bit. How do we recover that customer? How do we get them back on board with what our core competencies and our core values are there? We need to support, empower, and reward our folks. You just saw how many millennials are already in here. We talked about support and empower and rewarding them. How are we working with these folks on our staff? And then how are we really training our staff to be those people who risk, who bubble up ideas, who say this process doesn't seem to be working? How can we do it differently? We need to really come together in all of our areas to say all of us have something to add to this process, to add to this value. Let's continue to bubble that up. And we need to continue to communicate really who we are and where we're going, and that's one of the things that I think this series on Strategic Objectives Workshops is doing, is to communicate among the group that way. Training, very important in this culture of supporting, empowering, and rewarding. I just think that any organization that wishes to move forward on a consistent basis with sharing their values, showing their values, and providing customer service has to have a fond commitment to the training exercise. So managers in this room, as we look out over our areas and what we're responsible for, how well are we training folks in those areas? Fully communicate our missions, aligning our short-term vision and our short-term execution of those so that we can get to our mission, and giving everyone in our areas a real chance to excel. This final thing is about everyone walking the talk. Everything walks the talk. What is interesting to me about CCU 13 years later is that we are more and more coming to a point where everything walks the talk, where we all are truly on the same page about our basic core mission. And yes, we have many challenges that rise from that, but our basic core mission is becoming more and more solidified among us. And that is very key for a small Christian college. We all have to be moving in the right direction, on the same page, with one thing in mind, and really having a commitment as a staff and faculty to the long-term focus of this university. We need to focus on what customers want. And most of us, and believe me, after a heavy student discipline week this week, I would tell you that the thing that I am most rigid about is parents and students trying to talk me off our standards. And so when we say sometimes that we need to focus on what customers want, some of us take that, well, it's doing what's good for them is not necessarily what's good, and that's right. We need to have those discussions. We need to continue to say, well, these standards are standards that we're going to hold, and we have to train them to those standards. We're not going to compromise those standards whatsoever. And that's a key point for us, and a situation that we are going to need to talk about. It's truly, when you talk about magnet, it is truly the old adage that if you take one key out of the situation, then it is barely unreadable. If you take the E key out of this situation, you can't read the sentence. Put the E key in and you can. And that's how important each of us are in all of the different areas, from the grounds people to the folks who are in the classroom and to the folks who are serving lunch. So how do we make a difference in this situation in trying to become a magnet? First thing is to look at making a difference in someone's life. And just that one person, we talked about this during our Holy Living, just that work study maybe might be the only customer that you run into. Maybe that phone call from a parent might be the only phone call from a customer that you took this whole week. For some of us, obviously, we have lots of opportunities to make a difference in someone's life. But it is not only here, it's also in the community. And I give you an example of this that's very interesting to me about being a magnet institution. I've coached in the local Golden Applewood Basketball League now for about 16 years. And all during this time, it's a very secular league, of course, I bring the students over to our girls, men's and women's basketball coaches to do clinics. And then we bring them to the games here at CCU to have dinner in the cafeteria and the games. And it's very interesting to see what that does over the years. I never once have gotten a pushback from anyone that, you know, you're taking us to a Christian university, we're not a part of that, you know, part of that or anything, never once. And what I've seen recently is 2 students come out of my daughter's years when I coached them in 6th grade are here this year as students, and I didn't even know they were Christian. In fact, I doubt they were, actually, when I think back on it. So how can we, in our individual touching of the community, my friends joke with me all the time that they don't believe I have anything in my closet that doesn't have a CCU logo on it. And that's true. When I go anywhere, to my daughter's soccer game at Faith, I make sure I have that CCU logo on. When I go to something that's appropriate in terms of not a suit or tie or something like that, I have a CCU logo on. And it's time to talk to people about that. And what I find is people are compelled and intrigued about what's going on at CCU. We're coming out of this sleepy little Christian college into an area now that we're trying to be a magnet. And in that, each of us have to help in that situation. How do we draw people and attract them, students, colleagues, donors, and anyone that we come into contact? We need to look at how we fit individually into that big picture. What could we do individually to make us a city on the hill? And so many of us have a passion for this place and the potential of this place. That something happened Monday that Dick brought to Cabinet that really hit me. And it was an article from the president of Seattle Pacific University on anticipation, and it used Isaiah 43. And Isaiah 43 says, "Behold, I'm about to do something new. Can you perceive it?" And to me, when we talk about being a magnet institution, the Lord wants to do something new here daily, and He's about to. Can we perceive it individually? And can we perceive it as an organization? To really do the work and to do the hard work that it's going to take to make that happen. So, to be magnet for outstanding students and prepare them for significant leadership in the church, business, government, and professions by offering an excellent education in strategic disciplines. What we're asking today is that you would join us in this noble effort to become the city on the hill in the Rocky Mountain region and nationally. Thank you.